Study of Torah is not just a very important commandment of the Jewish faith and tradition, but also, in a certain way, one of the very essential parts of Judaism. One may say that, generally speaking, Judaism is built on three pillars, or three basic forms of relation. One is the practical way of keeping the commandments of the Torah. The other part is the faith, what you believe in. Now, these parts, in one way or another, are, in a way, common to every faith in the world, not just to Judaism. Of course, the difference is what you are supposed to do and what you believe in, but the basic format is there. Judaism has something which is, in a way, peculiar to it, which is one of the very major things is the study of Torah. It is in itself something very important. As a people, as a faith, as a tradition, for us, knowledge of our Torah is not just an addition to our general belief, but it's a very essential part of it. Without it, we are really missing something which is a very, very essential, important part of our lives. In that sense, we are, all of us, supposed to be learned people. Now, are all of us learned? Not always so. But we are supposed to be so. And we can, of course, achieve different levels of knowledge according to talent and to how much you put into it. But basically, everybody is supposed to be knowledgeable. Contrary to all kinds of faiths and beliefs in which the simple people, at least, are not supposed to know anything. They are supposed to believe what they are told to believe in and to do what they are ordered to do. A Jew has to know. And that is what I call studying of Torah, therefore an essential part of being Jewish, not just because it is one of the commandments, but it's a part of what if you are Jewish, it means that you are studying. You are studying the Torah. So, in the first level, the study is, if you want it, in a very simple, a very basic way, it is your way of being Jewish. Just so. If you are Jewish, it means you are studying Torah. In a different level, and that goes into things that can be discussed in a different way, different level. Studying Torah is not just considered to be something to satisfy the craving for knowledge or the need to know, but it is in itself it's a religious act. One has to remember that study in itself is considered not just that you know what to do. The study as an occupation is considered an act of worship in itself. You are doing worship while you are studying. It's a very unique form, which makes the whole study a very different experience, because it's an experience of, in a certain way, being connected to the Almighty, not just to whatever you have in your heart or what you have in what you are doing, but also to your mind. You are making some kind of a connection of a interaction and almost unification that is done through the study. Now, what is the subject of study of Torah? Lots of things. I mean, study of Torah is, because the Torah is a very large amount of knowledge, very different levels. It begins with studying the alphabet. It goes on into learning the most esoteric secrets of the Torah. But all of these are learning Torah. In a very essential way, all of them are equal. I am doing an act of worship by getting involved. So in that sense, learning Torah is an act of doing something as a Jew, in order to be a Jew, in the way of my expressing my Jewishness, and also of expressing my relationship. See, otherwise I don't have a relationship with God. As the Torah says, the book of the Deuteronomy, to be connected with God with all your heart, with all your mind. It is not a part of the heart connection, of the emotional love or fear connection. There's a connection of the soul connection, of the mind connection. You are connected by doing it. Now, it doesn't mean that whatever you learn is always that you are learning about what is the Almighty doing now. What is He ordering me to do in this particular moment? But in a way it is, we are doing things together, if one may say so. When I'm learning Torah, I am doing something of a meeting of minds, so to say. We are now sitting together, and God on one hand, and I on the other hand, we are sitting and studying together. Just imagine the same notion. I mean, you have a mother and son sitting and say looking in a picture book. This looking together is a connection in itself. I mean, we are participating with each other by the very act of doing these things as a togetherness. So that is basically the sense of studying of Torah as an act that is self-fulfilling. Now, how does a person feel about it? It depends. A part of it is subject matter, and a part of it is in my attitude. If my attitude is full of reverence, is full of the desire to be connected, then I don't really care very much. Just imagine, if I'm in love with somebody, it doesn't really matter very much what we are doing together. If I'm not in love with the person, then maybe I'm doing business that is all right. I'm speaking about frivolities, that is not right. But if we are in love, then everything we do is what I call a great enjoyment and feeling of togetherness. So that's the main point. Is studying Torah is not just a feeling of, it may be a feeling of awe, it may be a feeling of love, it may be a feeling also of just dealing with details. I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to know what it is. So what does it do to a person? First of all, it makes the connection. Secondly, it gives his mind the subject to deal with, because the subject of Torah, and one has to remember again, Torah is not just details of the law. They are also Torah. Torah is not just a story in the book. It's also Torah. Torah is not just those very complex and highly intellectual delving into possibilities and theories which is done in Talmud. Torah is all of them, or any of them. So I am now learning. I'm being together and I'm learning. So that is the Torah for me as an individual, because in a certain way, learning Torah is a very private act. It is my mind. I cannot learn. One has to remember it. Sometimes people do tend to forget that as nobody else can eat for me, nobody else can sleep for me, so nobody else can study for me. I have to do it on my own, because this is the only way that I can do it. So it is my mind, and it is the connection, which is connection with divinity, which goes through the Torah. In a way, one may call it, we see it as a kind of a channel of communication. We are communicating via the Torah. We learn certain things, and we also say certain things. This is our channel of communication, and that is what we do. And we begin it by doing it as individuals. And it's important that one really cannot be a teacher or preacher without living it. So the person who is dealing with it has to be into it. Then there is the other connection. That's the other connection, which is again as ancient as the Torah itself, which is the rule, the commandment, the constant drive to share it. Because on one hand, learning is my individual feeling and my individual connection. But I have to share it somehow. And I'm sharing it with the whole people. And to explain this point properly, you see, it is written, again in the end of the book of Deuteronomy, that the Torah was given as an inheritance to the community of Israel. It's our common inheritance. It belongs not to one individual, whoever this individual is. The great scholar or the small person are sharer. I have shares in the same inheritance. Basically, I suppose equal shares that each of us gets. So these are the shares that we have. In a way, and it's to repeat a very ancient story of about, say, 2,000 years, that a simple man comes to the rabbi and says, "Why don't you share? Why did you steal from me my inheritance?" And the rabbi doesn't know what the fellow says. He says, "You don't teach me. It is my inheritance. The Torah is not just used as a professional, so to say. It is mine. It is my inheritance. And as my inheritance, I have a share in it. So if you don't give it to me, you are just depriving me of my share, of my right to the Torah." So in that sense, as I said, on one hand, it's a very individual connection. On the other hand, it is a common inheritance. It's inheritance to all of us together, and that is one of the ways in which we have our not what I call it vertical connection, which is the connection with which one may call it the man-God connection, which is a vertical connection, but also a horizontal connection. That's the connection that we have with all our members of the same nation. We have shares on the Torah. Sometimes, as it happens, people as individuals are trying to find out, not if they have to learn, but sometimes they want to find in a case, the right gateway. The Torah is big. It's rechava me'eretz midah, muka mini yam, broader than the earth, deeper than the sea. So I need some gateways to enter into it. That is one thing. But there is something more, which is, it goes back to the point of the individual. In a certain way, I have what is called my share in the Torah. My very particular part, which is, in a certain way, has a special resonance with myself. And people are many a time, sometimes for years, searching for that part that has this resonance. What I call "V'ten chelkeinu b'toratecha." Give us our share in your Torah, which means not a share to our right for it, but really, what is that particular part that has a particular meaning for me as a person? And so we are going in that way. We all of us share with the whole vast, really broader than anything else, broader than the heaven, limitless in a way. And we are trying to find our parts and to participate with others. So that's the feeling of not just sitting with another person and studying together. Because every time when I am studying, the idea is that there are so many others participating in the same thing. Because that is not only an individual act, it's also a community and a communal way of being connected. We are connected not in a certain form or time, but we are connected in being in this togetherness of being united. Maimonides once says, he speaks about levels of love. And he says there, what is the highest level of love is when two people love the same thing. That is a kind of a sharing thing in a very deep way, which is sometimes is when parents to a child. That's what I call, that is a very high level of love, because it contains not only the love of each of them to the other, but it contains also another level that we are interconnected with our common object. Because it doesn't mean always that the common object is a matter that we have to dispute, or to have who has a bigger share. In this way, we have a limitless amount. We don't have to care about our share, and I'm not taking it from anybody else. But being connected also. This is our common object of love as a people. So we are, all of us, supposed to be into it, and also supposed to push everybody that we can into appreciating it. And we are doing it again, not because just it is one of those many commandments. It is also because the togetherness makes also the completeness of the phenomenon. It is not just a matter of me, myself doing it, but of the people, of the whole nation doing the same thing. And that is a way of communicating, of being together with the others. In a very, very, very basic format. The same thing also goes about the notion of teaching it. Teaching it in a way, as the Torah says, that's the first formula. Teach it to your children. Teaching it to the children is not just helping them to have a lesson in something. Teaching it to our children means also making them partners in what is so very, very important. We are passing to them our own inheritance. So the fact that pointing it out, making it so very, very clear, is that fact that when I'm giving it to my children, I'm giving something which is as precious and as essential as giving them my DNA. I'm giving them the very essence which makes me tick. I'm trying to give it to my children. And so this connection, not just sitting with a baby and telling stories of the Torah. It may be important, it may be helpful. It's not just the stories. It has the very important part of it is that I'm trying to transmit something that is very, the very important parts. When I'm teaching my children Torah, I'm not telling them this will be useful for your life, or I'm telling them that it will allow you to pass the examinations in an easier way, or anything like this. Not even telling them that it gives them a certificate to the world to come. But it is something else, which is I'm trying to in a way to transmit to them the feeling that is what we are. In a certain way, it's true about almost every part of the Torah. We are constantly interacting with the Torah. While we study it, we put ourselves in. Is what we put in important? Sometimes it is. Sometimes it remains for generations, our own input. Some point what we did is not that important. Okay, I said something, I had an idea, but it was my interaction, my being connected, and I'm trying to transmit it to others. I'm really dealing with the very essence of life, this ability to transmit my point of life to my descendants. So that is what it is about learning Torah. Now, how to do it? Well, the best way to suggest always is, as you do it when you try to teach little children to eat something. I mean, they may be at the first moment suspicious. So you cram it in their mouth, and they see it's not bad at all. Later on, they will go for it on their own. In the same way, we have it, what is it called? The admonition, book of the Psalms. Ta'amur u'kitov Hashem. Taste and see that God is good. Just have a taste, have a bite. So in that sense, teaching the Torah, making involved with the Torah, get a bite of it. So, well, sometimes you got a too big a chunk for you. So you have to take a smaller one. Sometimes you took a part that is you are not able by now to chew. So you should take something softer. And that's what we are doing, not only with children, but also with adults. Some people find high intellectual stimulation to be their cup of tea, a piece of cake. And they feel very, very comfortable with it. And some people can just listen to stories and have the same kind of feeling. It differs as people differ from each other. And the Torah has all the tastes, like manna had. It has all the tastes. Whatever you wish, you can find in it. So that is learning, and that is teaching the Torah. Now, how do you do it? You take any sample that you want, and you just begin. You begin. And the only thing, the only demand of you is get involved and treat it seriously. From that point on, it will work for you.